Hello, everybody. Welcome to Counselor's Couch 101. I'm Jim Stump. And if you'd like to communicate with us, go ahead and put a comment down below in the comment section, or you can send us an email at counselorscouch101@mail.com, just mail.com. Counselorscouch101, all lowercase, no apostrophe, no spaces, at mail.com. Recently, I received a comment. It was talking about a counselor. Apparently, this person went to a counselor and the counselor didn't seem interested in them. Apparently, also, that really turned off the person who went in seeking the counseling. What about that kind of thing? It really does happen that a counselor is not matched to a person who's coming in looking for help. It does happen. It's really a real thing. And they say to the counselors, if you don't like someone, you shouldn't work with them. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem to match up. It doesn't seem to be effective. So if you don't like them, you should best refer them on. That's what we call it. We don't abandon anybody, but if we can't help them, we try to refer them to someone who can help them, right? We're not trying to leave people in the dark and the cold. We're trying to find you something that'll work for you. I remember I was talking to a lady once. She was assigned to me. It's not someone I picked and not someone I particularly knew, but she was assigned to me, and so I had to communicate with her and see whether or not we can be of any service to her. This lady, she she pretty much sort of denied or was not accepting of any suggestion I could come up with. She always found a way to say that that's not going to work, right? And she also had a habit. She would start a sentence and not finish it. And she'd do this over and over and over again. She could go on for minutes and not say a thing, just starting a sentence like, well, what I think is, but no, the other hand, it's, well, have you considered, and remember the last time we talked? She'd go on like that and say absolutely nothing. And I'd be waiting and waiting and saying, okay, what's your point? I'm trying to be respectful. I'm trying to give her enough time to express herself and to say what she needs. But she never got to the point. And any sort of when I tried to point that out to her, she rejected that as well. She was saying that was my fault. I didn't understand her. I wasn't appreciating who she was and what she had been through. I say, well, all that may be true, but the bottom line is this doesn't seem to be working. Now, towards the end of our association, we only spoke, I think, maybe 6 times, which was probably 5 too many. And I don't say that to say something negative against her. I say that because we were not well matched. We were not well connected, as far as our conversation. But in that last conversation, she told me that she had a counselor before me, which was fine. I knew that. I was referred over. And I asked her what happened in that relationship. And she said the counselor finally told her, and I quote, "I can't help you." That's all the counselor said. She said, "I can't help you." That's it. And she just terminated the conversations and she terminated the appointments. And after speaking with the young woman, I could appreciate the frustration that the previous counselor had gone through. She recognized this woman was not open to communicating, not open to working with that counselor on issues. In fact, she had a hard time even identifying the issues that she had come to work on. But she had been told by many of her friends, her family, and her coworkers and employers that she should go talk to somebody. So there was something clearly up and she was blocking it. It wasn't working, right? So we do run into those folks. I've mentioned to you before. I've spoken with gentlemen, it's usually gentlemen, who talk on and on and on and don't let you get a word in edgewise. Now, what do you suppose that is telling you? Well, it's telling me that they don't really want to address issues, right? They don't trust me. They don't like being in counseling. They don't want to deal with the issues that they had been sent to counseling to deal with. And they were just holding me off, right? I was speaking to a 15-year-old boy one time, and he did a similar technique. I'd say, well, what about this side of the arrow? And he would say, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to tell you this first. It's more important. I got to tell you this. And he would talk on and on and on about irrelevant things. And it was really clear that all he was doing was trying to burn up the time. His parents had brought him to counseling. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to talk about anything. And he would talk and waste the time. And then as the hour ended, he would stand up and he'd kind of smile and walk out the door smirking. And I got the game. I understood what was up. And I tried to bring it to his attention. He didn't want to hear that either. If we don't have a good connection, it's not working, the counseling's not working, right? And so we should move on to someone else. Doesn't mean it's a bad client, and it doesn't mean it's a bad therapist. It just means that we didn't connect somehow. And part of that connection is who you are, your age, your experience, your gender, etc., and your outlook on life. Sometimes we have to talk to the folks that we are more like, you know. Someone once said that we should only counsel people that are like us. I don't believe that's entirely true, but there's a grain of truth in it. If we don't have some sort of a common experience, a common understanding, a common outlook on the world, then we might not be able to make this relationship work. That's not always true, but often it can be. Reminds me of the guy, when he was 10 years old, he looked out the kitchen window and he noticed that a new family was moving in next door. And this young girl was walking down the driveway on her side of the fence and like that. And he looked out the window and he said to his mom who was passing by, he said, "That's the girl I'm going to marry." He was 10 years old. You know what? He did marry her. And they got along famously. They had a wonderful marriage for a long time. I think it was close to 50 years. He married her young and they went through life together. Now, why did that relationship work? Well, we stop and think about it. They lived in the same neighborhood, so they came from the same sort of socioeconomic sphere. They went to the same schools together, so they had that common experience. They had a common religion. They had a common political outlet. They had a lot of things that worked, and so the relationship worked. Counseling relationships are just like any other personal relationship. We have to connect with the person, and we have to communicate in a way that they can understand. If we are not able to do that, it's not likely to be a good relationship. Or in counseling, in the counseling area, it's not likely to be successful. We have to connect up some way. And if a counselor doesn't naturally have that sort of affinity with the person they're trying to talk with, the person can educate the counselor as to the person's experience, and that can happen. If the person, we call them clients, if the client is willing to explain the experiences they've been through and educate the counselor so the counselor can understand where they're coming from, what they've been through, and what they would like to change, the things they're unhappy with in life, the habits they want to break and replace with better habits. If that can happen, then the relationship can be successful. But it has to start with wanting to be there, wanting to work on that communication. And oftentimes it has to do with whether or not we are attracted to the counselor that we're working with. And by attraction, I just mean, are we comfortable with that person? Do we feel like they can understand us? We feel like they get us and they can offer some advice that we can relate to, and we feel it's going to be helpful to us. So in the case of the lady, she went to the counselor didn't seem interested in her. Well, in defense of the counselor, I wonder what the lady said to the counselor that the counselor was not responding to. Was she just talking around in circles and not saying anything? I hope that's not the case, but it's something that I would have explored with her had I had the opportunity to do that. I'd say, why didn't it work? What was going on? It may have been that the client was uncomfortable in that situation, didn't want to open up. It could be that could have caused it. Or it could have been that the counselor truly was not interested. If that's the case, that counselor should not be working with that person, and it wasn't the client's fault. That's on the counselor, right? They say you should never try to do counseling with people that you don't like. If you run into that situation, we're supposed to refer that person on to someone who can help them. Well, I have a lot of attempts to work with people that just didn't connect. It didn't happen. And we quickly went our separate ways. And I blessed them and wished them well and tried to give them some advice as to where they can get some assistance with what they wanted to go to counseling to work on. Tried to point them in the right direction if I couldn't help them, and I'd tell them that too. But for all those people that I did connect with and I have worked with for a long time, I came to love them. I don't mean love in a romantic sense, but I came to appreciate them and appreciate their sincerity and bravery to take on this type of work, because it's not fun, it's not easy. So when I had that kind of a connection with the person, I felt pretty certain that we were going to make progress in the relationship. The clients I've been successful with, I've loved them. I really have. I enjoyed them, and I really appreciated they're willing to share their personal experiences with me. I did a lot more growing talking to clients than clients did talking to me, and that's really true. Anyway, thanks for coming. I look forward to speaking with you next time. God bless.